I'm Quentin Collins, Assistant Director and alum of LaSalle University's Solstice Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing program. Welcome to the second in a series of Ian's so cheesy. Second in a series of 7 evening readings taking place here in Auburndale, Massachusetts, as part of our winter 2025 residency, which is 10 days and kicks off our spring semester. For tonight's reading, first up, we will have our graduate assistant and alum, Ellen Austin Lee, who will be introduced by Assistant Director and alum Quentin Collins, whoever that is. Then we will have our founding director, Meg Kearney, who will be introduced by our creative nonfiction student, Katie Nelson. And then we will conclude with fiction and writing for young people faculty member, Laura Williams McCaffrey, who will be introduced by our student, Achiro Olwak. So, Quentin, come on up to the mic. All right. So if you were not subscribed to the Solstice MFA newsletter, and you should be if you aren't, you are likely very familiar with grad assistant and Solstice alum Ellen Austin Lee's name. Month to month, I have the fortune of telling you all about her many poem publications, readings, and award recognitions. In fact, Ellen's achievements are so consistent that she once or twice remarked that she doesn't have much this time when submitting only 1 or 2 entries. Now, while this tendency would indicate hubris in some other writers, with Ellen, it is one of many indications of her humility before this art we all love and the consistent, at times humbling, work that goes into each of these successes, of which, again, Ellen has many. Moreover, it's telling of the many hours alone that Ellen has devoted to her craft, as well as the many more hours Ellen commits to engaging with and uplifting the work of writers in her local community and here at Solstice. Ellen's debut full-length collection of poems, Incidental Pollen, which was runner-up for the Arthur Smith Poetry Prize from Madville Publishing, is now available for pre-order. So go ahead and get that. The book arrives in May 2025. Additionally, Ellen has authored 2 chapbooks, Lockdown, Scenes from Early in the Pandemic, and Firefly, both with Finishing Line Press. As I mentioned before, Ellen's publication record for individual poems spanned many journals and anthologies. To mention a few, The Main Review, One Art, Salamander, Of Rust and Glass, and many more. Ellen's other awards and accolades include Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominations. Furthermore, Ellen earned an artist residency from Sundress Academy for the Arts in 2024. And she also had a lovely reading series in Cincinnati that she calls Poetry Night at Sidwell's. So again, a very big community organizer for her own work and for others. This residency marks Ellen's 3rd term as grad assistant at Solstice. Since graduating from the program in January 2022, our last Zoom-only residency, she has remained a fixture in the Solstice community as an alum with this role, her part in organizing the alum retreat with Cassie and Deb, and helping organize one of our AWP offsite readings. Ellen embodies everything that we want the Solstice community to be, and we're lucky to have her. Welcome to the stage, alum and grad assistant, Ellen Austin Lee.
Thank you so much, Q, for that introduction. That was incredible. It made me sound so great. I'm like, wow, I did all that. Okay. Well, hello, everyone, and hello, everyone in internet land. I'm Ellen Austin Lee. Am I loud enough? Yeah, thank you. An alum of the Solstice MFA in Creative Writing program, and I graduated in poetry in January of 2022. As Q said, the last virtual residency, which partly explains why I'm here a lot. Partly. This is my third winter as a co-grad assistant with Cassie Rubico. And yeah. So thank you to Meg and Quentin for having me back again. So I'm honored to read tonight with such talented women writers as our Solstice founding director, Meg Kearney, and Solstice Fiction and Writing for Young People faculty member, Laura Williams McCaffrey. And so like Ian Haley Pollock mentioned last night, I have my first full, well, it's not his first full length, but my full length collection is coming out this year in May. But I decided to be brave and do the Solstice thing and read some new work. And yeah, thank you. It's unpublished too. So I hope you don't have tomatoes in your pockets. But in this case, it's a heroic crown of sonnets that I worked on for over a 1-year time period. And yes, I caught the bug from Meg Kearney and Quentin. And I loved having the larger canvas to explore what I discovered to be overwhelming fear. That's what it ended up being about. And centered on what I have that I may lose and what I want but cannot have. So tonight I'll read some sonnets in sequence because I'd like you to hear how the last line of each sonnet becomes the first line of the next. So you hear the interlocking nature. And because of that, I'm going to read 5 sonnets and I'm going to read them straight through. So you don't feel you have to, I may pause briefly between sonnets, but don't feel like you have to applaud because I kind of get into this flow thing. So, and you can wait till the end to hopefully applaud, hopefully. So it seems right that I start with sonnet 5 because I wrote that one in the January residency a year ago. In fact, I skipped auditing Ian Haley Pollock's class to write this. So that's what I'm going to start with. And there is some loss, especially in the first few sonnets that I'm going to read. So if that brings something up for you, feel free to step out. And I may get emotional, but I'll be okay. So I haven't read this out loud yet. So you know, one never knows. So sonnet 5, turning. Wrongs I thought faded in the laundry, brush off like dust. When those I love begin to fall sick. The shock, tumors found growing inside my brother and sister's bellies. To lose them, I will never be ready. My mother waits in her chair in the living room, losing her sight, near 100 years in this world. Wind whirls too warm in January. Everything's out of season. Yesterday's snow, now dirty patches on the grass. I make peace with news I can't live with. Shadows, walk past deep puddles, scrape mud from my treads, swallow. Just today, I say, but watch the sky. Unease sometimes comes back in newly colored casts. 6, the kaleidoscope. Sometimes comes back in newly colored casts. Near 20 years since my last drink, and look, another switch to reroute my brain. Books pile up on the dining room floor, too fast to read them. I book trips to Oz, the glass refills, the tumbler spills, and poems cook under the hood. The engine revs, sputters, shook climbing each hill. We don't trust it to last. To say you're a poet is not enough. My therapist says to open the door, let success enter. Cast fast the morass of ego and fear, patterns repeating. Rough cut critics try to block the light before the kaleidoscope spins shards of shifting glass. 7, blushing. The kaleidoscope spins shards of shifting glass, and I emerge, wearing this hot pink sweatshirt with zippers. Come inside where it's wet and I'm alive, fire eyes. Or is it a flash that stokes this slow burn turned masterclass on how many petals I must pluck to get he loves me not? The world wants me to forget how to be soft, how to open. Perhaps that I have a body. Your need, my want. We'll meet in the meadow where I wait in the wildflowers, lips laced with honeybees, sweet clover on my breath. Come, love, savant, word weaver. Let me spin one last web. Taste the same hues I have looked through, copied. 8, rising. The same hues I have looked through, copied, because I sit here so, waiting, watching, late February trees turning green, need reawakened in my body. So I sing an old melody out loud, a moment freed from knowing the crows and their dark wings fold as their murder gathers, a tight string stretched around my childhood home. Their greed grows, the branches brought low, a split bough, these metaphors for a felled me until there's a chemo pause and my brother goes downhill skiing and my sister's voice sounds strong. How wrong to blame the birds, desert this day. Still, patterns turn in my hand. See me walk now. 9, with the chi. Patterns turn in my hand. See me walk now, each step slower than the one before. I watch my footing, broken bones I can't ignore, outward signs of inner trauma, one eyebrow half gone, body scarred. My face a furrowed field with lines no cream can erase. The score flashes on my face, all across the board, 0, 0. Even love disavows. But a kung fu instructor once told me at my first class, as I leaned against the wall shaking, you have an abundance of chi. Evidence insists. The core energy manifests whenever I choose to call. I no longer have to hide in the trees. 10, last one, of the Selkie. I no longer have to hide in the trees. I am so adept at changing my mask. A chameleon has nothing on me. Ask each lover to attach words to what they see, and I transform. Smoke and mirrors, an eel born with a body of glass, slipping through grass, changing shades as I age, mating a task, shifting on the swim to the Sargasso Sea. And who am I supposed to be? Skinless for close to 30 years. Someone please find my hide, hidden inside this crypt. Now I want to push through stone to reach his lips, lie together, fall to shore, limbs entwined, cry under the weeping willow. See how. I'm going to leave you hanging. Thank you.
I just told Meg I'm gonna be weird. When Quentin asked me to introduce Meg tonight, I challenged myself to think of something that has not already been said. I could list Meg's many accolades, her 2020 Washington Prize for Poetry for All Mourning the Crows, or her 2021 Pushcart Prize nomination, or her inclusion in 2017's Best American Poetry Anthology. I could go on to say that Meg's body of work ranges from poetry collections to a trilogy of novels for teens in verse, to an award-winning picture book, but all of this you've heard before. So here goes something new. Meg Kearney is our Gandalf. It's Lord of the Rings, and if you don't know that, then shame on you. Now, when I say Meg is Gandalf, I mean a few things. First, like Gandalf, Meg leads us by example. As we meander through the winding mines of Moria down a path which at times feels dangerous and uncertain, as we as humans look to our leader to guide us, to teach us the way. Here at Residency, we all get a respite to focus on the pursuit of growth and learning. Meg, as our founding director / wizard, stands at the bridge of Khazad-dûm with a staff telling the Balrog what he's not going to do, reminding us to breathe, to be here, to focus on this special time and the good work. Second, like Gandalf, Meg has assembled a fellowship. In the swivel seats beside you sit hobbits and rangers, warriors and leaders, all with the same goal, informed by the same solstice philosophy: to do the most with the time that is given to us. At Solstice, Meg's perpetuation of her mentor's philosophy of inclusion, consideration, and compassion fosters a community that produces creativity and builds a bond between writers unlike anything I've ever been a part of. But Meg can do something that Gandalf could never. She can play the ukulele. Please join me in welcoming founding director Meg Kearney.
That was different. That was awesome. I did see the movies too. I didn't read all the books. I tried The Hobbit so many times and I just couldn't. Yeah. But thank you so much, Katie. And thanks to the team. Thanks, Q, always, and Cassie and Ellen. I ain't doing this magic stuff all by myself. And it takes all of us. So thank you, students and this incredible faculty. Mike Miner shows up, like alum from many, many moons ago. Lee Hope and Bill Betcher here. So just, so many great new and old friends. I really appreciate all of you. So in the summer, some of you might remember I did read new work. I've been working on another heroic crown of sonnets. Go Q and Ellen. I mean, Ellen, that was incredible. I can't wait to read this whole thing. Yes. So I'm happy to say that I'm publishing some of those sonnets now in some magazines, and it's going to come out as a chapbook in September. So I'm not going to read from that book until it's out. So like next winter, because it'll feel old if I do that. But you got a taste of it, some of you. It's called Cardiac Thrill. So it has a heart theme that goes through it. But in the spirit of the like radical vulnerability stuff, I thought that even though I'm going to read bird poems, so All Mourning the Crows, each of the poems is a different bird. Not necessarily about the bird, but the bird's kind of the launching point. I'm going to read a start and I'll end with bird poems that I didn't include in the book and have read only one other time in public. And like they didn't really fit in the collection, and I wasn't sure enough. But this first one starts a bit of a theme that many of these poems are going to follow tonight, and I think you'll pick up on that theme pretty quickly. This is American Coot, C-O-O-T, and I'm just going to read this little epigraph. So all these bird poems were inspired by a book called 100 Birds and How They Got Their Names by Diana Wells. And so a lot of times I'm quoting or I'm using information from her book, and in the back there's all the notes giving her credit. But this is from from Diana Wells' book. Coots selectively feed their young. In America, the chicks who beg most vociferously are fed. In Europe, the parent coots will actually shake a chick to death if it's too demanding. Isn't that weird? And sometimes they're called black ducks, but coots are actually related to rails. American coot. Famous today for his orange plume. He was born bald as a coot. Gimme, 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 the baby coot shrieked. And because he was filthy rich in America, he never once heard the word no. Soon he reclined on his brother's bones. Sometimes he is called a duck, but coots are rails from the French word for rattle, which he shook to death in his crib. More, more, he clamored as he grew, claiming every last bass in the lake, and that it was he who coined the word cooting. My people, my fellow red-blooded Americans, he says, can't get enough of my cooting. Forget the minor fact that cooting dates back to the late 17th century and refers to the copulation of turtles. He shrugs. He loves turtles. Turtles are just tremendous, he says. He claims he's met some lovely ones, and boy, did they like to copulate. But if necessary, well, he's never met a shell or a fact or a mate he couldn't break, though he'd prefer to screw it. He's that kind of bird, old coot. Thanks. So you can catch the kind of theme I got going here. So this is Magpie. This is a sonnet. Magpie. Oh, and I'm going to read you just quick from Diana. From the time of Noah's Ark, magpies have had a reputation for chattering. Magpies were said to be the only creatures that would not go into the ark, preferring to perch on the roof, chattering while the whole world around it drowned. Magpie. They say I talk too much. That magpie, she's a chatterer, they say. Rather than ride inside the ark with us, she perches on the roof and croons away just to please herself while the whole world drowns. Horrified, I risk the storm to speak. Rain merciless for 30 days now with no sign of stopping. They act as if they've been sitting in church while I've frolicked like the devil's mistress. Of course, there are some who think women should keep their beaks shut, just look pretty while mopping everyone's shit off the floor. But tell me this, if they all play it safe, simply wait for an end to the flood, then who else will sing the song of witness? Thank you, guys. This is the best audience. I'm trained by Ian Haley Pollock. Okay, this is Ibis, and I'll tell you that I'll talk about Thoth, T-O-T-H, the Egyptian god of wisdom and learning. He had the body of a man and the head of an ibis. And also certain ibises are said to croak like ravens. Ibis. Her first mistake was trusting a god with the body of a man and the head of an ibis. People said he was old and bald and croaked like a raven, and desired only shrimp and flies. But no, he was fine and smelled of salt. He knew her names, the one she was born with and the one she was given. Knowledge, he said, is a pond awake with fish. When he stripped her on its mossy bank and lured her in, she understood. Lily pads tangled around their knees. Her body was a map his hands had drawn. Beyond clear blue sky, she saw the moon, full, and stars in their constellations. If only she'd been satisfied. Instead, she tugged at his arm, insisting. For wisdom, he had to carry her to shore, lay her down. She imagined the earth would open, reveal its golden center. But his bill was sharp. She thought he would be gentle. Yet with each peck, he drove her deeper and deeper until she knew he had never truly been a wading bird or bastard child. He was God of heaven, where all the angels' bodies are broken. Thanks. I know some of these are a little dark, but we all will end with resilience and then maybe a little humor. Heron. We'd scared the shit out of her, that heron. Not what the dog and I expected in a thicket of pine, half a mile from Cranberry Meadow Bog. The bird hoisted herself into the air, left a streak of white like a run of watery paint across the rock she'd rested on. She crashed her way through the forest, wide wings cracking boughs that tore at her feathers as she fled. Fear can make any girl oblivious to branches shredding her arms and legs as she makes her escape, say, from a man running after her with a brick. That's so far in the past, but she was the one who believed love could change a drunk until she saw what he held in his hand. Enough. Now I simply pity that girl and the heron who couldn't know we meant her no harm. Thanks, guys. Okay, 3 more. This is ostrich, and I'll give you another Diana Wells quote. This is a good one. This is from the 19th century. So back then in the day, politicians wishing to criticize eruditely could safely call rivals Struthonian, meaning that, like foolish ostriches, they refuse to acknowledge reality. Huh? Ostrich. It took her 2 years to face it. He wasn't a nightingale. He wasn't a mockingbird either. Shit, he couldn't even sing. When he promised her music, he'd meant the store-bought kind, the brand that comes in a can. And yet He didn't understand why she packed her things, dressed for departure. You're depressed, he said. She said, no, she just had to save herself. Couldn't wait for a cavalry rescue. But they're nearly here, he replied, laying his head on the ground, right ear down. As he listened for the sound of hooves, she knew he was truly Strathonian and wanted to cry. This bird not only couldn't sing, he couldn't fly. All right, so this is a poem, I think, about resilience, which we all need a little bit of right now. This is Duckling Swan. I think you all know the Hans Christian Andersen story of the ugly duckling. Duckling Swan. Before I was born, I was biggest of the clutch, already a burden and slow to hatch. When at last I smashed my way into this world, my mother's tongue unfurled a hiss. Siblings snickered and jeered. Who could love an ugly girl, smothered in egg wax, gray as the curl in a drowned man's lip? Even cleaned up, my down was ash. I was the art of my mother's mistake, the ache in her dinosaur heart. I was the winter, the ice over early, no fish in the pond, and the hunters sure shot. I had nowhere to go when they drove me out. I went like something dead in Coyote's mouth, like something the cat mauled, then tossed about. I starved through the full moons, slept in the snow. But by spring, a lake was aglow with my gleaming. In spring, I returned and blinded them all. Thank you so much. Okay, now to end on a lighter note, this is another bird poem that I did not include in the book, and I want to dedicate this to Q, who made a turkey joke at orientation. I was like, yeah, I'm going to read that ode to turkey. This is my ode to turkey. And thank you all for being an incredible audience. Thanks for your reading. Can't wait to hear the amazing Laura Williams McCaffrey. And thanks again to Katie Nelson for that incredible intro. Ode to turkey. Because you run from your enemies, because you were named for a country that wasn't your own, because you're known to roam across a road as if it's a meadow, because the Mayflower, Indians, and Pilgrims, because Ben Franklin proposed you be our national bird, because the eagle won out, because a herd of you will drown gazing skyward in a rainstorm, and Alexander Hamilton proclaimed no one should refrain from eating you each Thanksgiving Day. Because of your bluish red wattles and rusty tail tips, your gobble and bearded breast, because Mae West fed you her best beer before chopping off your head, because your head is naked and you'll attack the color red, because we dance the turkey trot and drumsticks keep the beat, because some like whiskey over rocks and some like it neat, because Norman Rockwell thought you worthy with a ladle full of gravy, but the owl will not touch you with your fan of feathers spread. I praise and will not eat you, wild patriot, fellow turkey, ugly fool of fowls.
I'll start with a disclaimer. Katie and I did not collaborate as we were writing our introductions. My name is Achiro P. Olwatch, and if you're the government, I'm Patricia A. Olwatch. I'm a third year fiction student, a third semester fiction student. I have the pleasure of introducing the amazing Laura Williams McCaffrey. Fun facts about Laura. Did you know that she was tempted to invent something improbable, like a past life as an astronaut, which anyone who knows her would never believe because of her terror of flying? Did you know that she's never been outside of the US and Canada since 1991 when she went to Russia on a class trip? I wonder what she experienced in Russia that made her think, no, I'll just stay in good old America. Did you know that Laura is admittedly a terrible cook, but she makes a mean apple pie? Did you know that she has only lived in 2 US states and nowhere else? Effects of that Russia trip, no doubt. You should have gone to Africa, Laura. There are about 50 plus countries to choose from. That said, as a result of going nowhere, Laura Williams McCaffrey has led a remarkably mundane life up to this point. Though she says the small town where she lives is strange, filled with artists and eccentrics. One last fact that I thought was amazing for me was that she went to Barnard College. That's the first school I had the pleasure of being a Weiss Fellow, but it's not about me today. The Laura I had the pleasure of working with last semester was so much fun. And I could have sworn that she had visited Uganda at some point in her life because she embraced my stories and interacted with me from the point of view of someone who understood the culture and what it was that I was trying to say. The first time I met Laura, though, I thought that there was something magical and mystical about her. Something like a young Professor McGonagall. For those of you who don't know who that is, shame on you. Maybe it's her lovely hair or the way she moves, prim and proper, like those girls who went to an all-girls Catholic school. Then I saw a small intro on her website. It reads, "About this site. If this were a fairy tale, I might ask you if you had some bread or water to share, or I might offer you a coat of invisibility or a set of magic keys for you to choose from." See what I was saying about her being magical? I could tell you about all the amazing writings attached to her name, but how about instead of that, I welcome her to read you a piece of her writing. Please join me in welcoming the mystical, prim and proper Laura Williams McCaffrey.
Oh, it's always hard to read after the introduction. It's really, really sweet. So sweet. Thank you so much. Very touching. And thank you to everybody who read tonight, to Meg and Ellen. It's your hard act to follow. And to all of you, especially my workshop crew, who was amazing today, and Tira for being great last semester, and Jess. I could go on and on. Just thank you all. Thank you all for being who you are. I'm going to read. I've been criticized before for always reading parts of things because lots of things I read are long. This is a short story. It's actually more of a flash piece. It was published in Pink Panther magazine a couple of years ago. And I read a small piece of it during our COVID readings when we were doing just 3-minute readings, but this will be the whole thing. And I'll read a little short, like it's not going to be the full 15 minutes or whatever. As sometimes happens when we're preparing for residency and show up for residency, there tend to be like these weird themes that just suddenly are all happening together, even though we chose what we were going to read independently without talking to each other. And when Ian was talking last night about writing about fears, I was thinking about this piece that I was going to read and thinking, oh yeah, when I write sci-fi, it is about what I am most afraid that might become and what we all might become. And unfortunately, we will not be ending on a positive note in this story. Because it isn't really sci-fi, but it is futuristic, and it is about what I'm afraid of. One of the many things I'm afraid of, and not just this one. This is called Howling. At night, the woman lies in the dark and listens to the howls echo across the valley. One cries out, the rest answer, ululating, hungry. The walls of the house are strong, she reminds herself. The fence around the house is strong. This is not something she used to worry about long ago, when she was another person and the world was another world. That long ago seems like a story. Once upon a time, there was a girl who went to classes and studied equations. She learned how to use spreadsheets. She calculated risk. Now, in the real world, she is a woman who fears early and late frosts, sudden windstorms. She cans beans, peppers, and cucumbers. She counts stacks of cans on shelves and calculates how many will remain by January, February. She used to calculate with complex formulas. Now the formula is simple. If they eat too much in December, they could starve in March. And this March is frigid. The weather forecasters said the world would get warmer, and it did. But sometimes it's colder. Cold like she never knew before, cold that can freeze her eyes shut. The loud howl, the chorus of yips and cries. The woman lies in the dark and listens to the others in the house sleep. The once strangers, now what? They aren't family. They are people like her who couldn't survive alone. Together, they have a chance. Though not all have a good chance. The baby and the children are curled on their pallet near the stove, keeping warm. The woman never sleeps near them. They're sturdy for now, but that could change quickly. Only the strong survive. The howl, the chorus, closer? They won't come too close. They can't. She almost never sees them. Once in a while, as she hauls wood, as she fetches potatoes from the root cellar, she catches a glimpse, a dirty face and suspicious eyes. Or maybe she imagines that glimpse because she blinks and the face, the eyes are gone. She still turns and runs then back to the fence and the house, swiftly and silently, looking over her shoulder. In the morning, everyone's slow, rising out of bed. The baby cries a thin, hungry wail, as if he knows there won't be enough. She stands at the kitchen shelves and stares at the jars. Too many are too close to empty. The root cellar is almost empty. Last year in March, she had seedlings and she was counting the days until she could put them in the ground. She had fresh greens in April. Not this year. This year, they are still eating last fall's potatoes. Long ago, there was a girl who ate fresh strawberries in winter, mangoes, bananas, avocados, oranges, lemons. If they had a small blemish, she threw them away whole. Now, there are no more dried apples to eat. There are no more jams, no more canned beans or tomatoes. The flour is gone and the household has eaten all last year's chicken. They didn't expect this March cold snap. No one did. Everyone's root cellars are almost empty. Few have anything to sell or trade. The baby she can hear is nursing, but also moaning a little. They'll have to give him some of the goat's milk, and already there's not enough. Someone needs to go out hunting, which will mean walking out beyond the house, beyond the fence. Others in the household can be squeamish, as if they are still in their long ago stories, as if they can buy food anywhere at any time, as if they can choose to avoid meat altogether because there are so many choices, as if there is always enough. She unlocks the gun cabinet. Cradling the rifle, she has to walk past one of the children. He says, "Bye," and she pretends she doesn't hear him. Snowshoes strapped to her boots, the woman winds down the slope. The snow is heavy. She sinks as she walks toward the thicket where she knows the rabbits hide. She sees tracks, deer, turkey, the wing brushes in the snow of some bird taking flight. At night, this valley echoes with howls, but now, in daylight, it is silent except for the wind blowing snow from branches. The snow thuds softly against the ground like a small body. As she weaves around a tree, she feels a prickle at the back of her neck. Something is watching her. Once upon a time, she was a girl who paid $5 for each cup of coffee, and she couldn't sense predators in the forest. She stops, one foot ahead of the other, and she half raises the rifle, ready if she needs to shoot. She turns slowly, scanning the overladen boughs, the tangle of briars. In her peripheral vision, something shifts. She turns to catch sight of it. Peering at her through evergreen branches are eyes and a dirty face. The woman is the hare, the rabbit, the deer, frozen, heart fluttering. She's seen other faces out here in the forest, the faces of scavengers who grow nothing, thieves and killers. But she has never seen this face. This face is hers in the mirror, a high forehead, large eyes, a small mouth. This face is what she used to look like, the long ago girl, 12. This face is 12 years old. This face is filthy. The girl's hair is long, tied back at her neck. The fingers of one of her hand are still claw-like, unable to plant and weed easily, unable to easily can or cook. The girl could have stayed if that had been all, but there had also been the wheezing, the breathlessness, the gasping, that awful night when her face went blue. The woman had done what one did, what was merciful, what was necessary. She had given the baby to the traveling doc, and she had known what that meant. Or she thought she had known, but she had been wrong, because here's this girl. She is alive. She's alive, she's alive, the woman's heart beats. In a hoarse voice, the girl says, "Why do you look like me?" We all could so easily starve. This truth is stuck on the woman's tongue. It's what I had to do. She should lift the rifle, but it hangs from her hand like a broken weight. The girl raises her head and begins to howl. The woman turns and runs. The girl's pack takes up the hungry cry.
Thank you to Ellen, Meg, and Laura. Can we get one more round of applause?